Hey guys, hey, it's Matthew. Um, I'm getting ready to launch one of my favorite projects to offer to my drawing students. It's a self-portrait with essentially using digital technology and a grid. Um, and so one of the basic steps for this project is to identify and locate a photograph that you really that's important to you. And, self-portraits are kind of special, so you shouldn't just always choose any photo. Maybe it's a certain time and place or, a period in your life that is just kind of crucial for you. And so, sometimes students just kind of go online really quickly or go to their Facebook page and just kind of nab something. And I would encourage you guys to just kind of take a moment and reflect a little bit and ask yourself, what kind of photograph of me, is going to be really memorable because you're going to be investing a lot of time and labor into this project. And so it might as well be, something that is important to you. Um, and so the other thing is maybe you want to give this self-portrait that you're going to complete to someone. And so that makes it even more crucial when you want to uh, uh, when you're making the decision about what image you want other folks to essentially kind of have an understanding of you through. So this is the project PDF that's been developing over some time, and these are some of the readings that I require. And the precedent artist for this particular project is Chuck Close, who of course is famous for using the grid quite a bit in his paintings. And also there's a real beautiful article I found on Warhol, in the computer. So essentially, in the mid 80s, Andy Warhol discovered the computer and started using it to develop maybe, uh, you know, some process for some of the screen prints that he was doing portraits of famous people through. And in this particular circumstance, it's talking about Debbie Harry, you know, who is or was the singer of Blondie back, back in the day in the New York City days. Um, so I think Debbie Harry and Andy Warhol, they were just sort of part of that scene, that crucial scene. That being said, these first two images are kind of a joke, like Kevin Bacon. There's just this image of Kevin Bacon, and then you can see that it's overlaid with a grid. And by the way, this is 18 inches by 24 inches. That's really, really important because when you start thinking about scale, and you're going to be looking at each of these little essentially squares or grids as 1 inch. And of course, when you're looking at it on your screen, on a desktop screen or your iPhone screen or whatever, it's going to look really small. So you have to understand this idea of scale when you're working with this project. So you find a photograph. You don't need to know the software. And so, essentially what I do is I kind of step in and I mediate because, I really enjoy using software as a process tool, even when I'm working on paintings and drawings. In a very similar way, that's why I was very drawn to this article with Warhol because he immediately saw the computer as a tool for creative expression. So here's the photograph of Kevin Bacon that I found. I cropped it to 18 by 24 aspect ratio because that's the sheet of paper I typically want you all using for this project. If you want to do something larger, we can talk and I can modify the template, but really 18 by 24 is the standard that I've been using for this project for years. If you have a drawing pad, more than likely, the dimensions of those sheets of paper within that drawing pad are 18 by 24. So just kind of keep that in mind. And so this is the result after doing a 3-color trace, okay? Um, this should all look like familiar information to you or a format, rather if you've taken a course with me, because I have, of course, a project synopsis and it says create an 18 by 24 inch self-portrait drawing using various types of media, graphite pen, charcoal, etc., while utilizing technology in the basic grid. Your drawing must focus predominantly on hatching and cross-hatching techniques. You guys know this about me, but as far as I'm concerned, hatching and cross-hatching and contour line drawing is the holy grail of drawing, period. And once you fall in love with those techniques, you can really do just about anything. And especially when you start to understand this idea of value and shadow and light. Okay. And that's essentially what's happening here. I mean, this image is being distilled into shadow and light or some sort of a tonal scale. In this circumstance, there are only 3 tones that are being utilized, but the software stepped in and facilitated that process. It's really beautiful. So again, I'm just going to kind of scroll down, and if you're in a class with me, I've probably given you a copy of this PDF. And um, but the most important thing I believe is, and it's really, that goes for all of my projects, are these incredible student examples, because it just kind of gives you a sense of how other folks approached a project like this. So, they provided me with a photograph. I stepped in and I distilled or ran the photograph through the software to create these tonal ranges and value systems. And then they kind of stepped in and just kind of started having fun and followed the process. I mean, that's all art really is it's defining a process and then following it. Similar to, someone like Andy Warhol. You have an idea, you plan how that idea is going to come together, and then you just make it so, you make it happen. Um, I I love this one, just the amount of detail. And then these are also great examples for how to do a project upload. So usually there will be a full image documentation, and then there will be these corresponding sort of detail shots. And of course, you want to make sure you have even light when you're doing that. If it's a cloudy day, that's ideal. Don't ever photograph things in direct sun. That just doesn't work very well. But if it's sort of like, if it's in the shade, that can work. Um, but in general, a cloudy day is really the best. It kind of depends on what period of the year it is. So if it's fall, maybe it is going to be a little bit cloudy outside. But if it's in the middle of summer, that might be a little bit, you can't wait around too long for a cloudy day to photograph your work. So you can find a really good, just kind of shady, consistent spot outside with natural daylight, because daylight is going to be your best lighting source always. Daylight and overcast. And if you can't find that, then you just find a spot maybe outside that happens to be sort of in the shade, but it's still relatively well lit. Okay. So a full image and then these beautiful detail shots. This is actually, all these are former students of mine who just did fantastic work. And this particular student, his name is Khalid, and I just really liked his approach. He was really interested in being in nature, and he really connects with nature and the way it makes him feel. And I remember him just talking to me about, why this photograph was important to him. But I mean, this is all done by hand with just graphite, a lot of patience. The grid is still there, which actually doesn't bother me. I think it actually adds something to the image. But really, like, ideally, when you're doing your layout for your grid, I might advise that you just take it easy. It doesn't have to be really hard. You just need to be able to find the grid, but it doesn't need to be obvious that it's there. So you can, with an H or an F pencil, you can lightly etch in your grid on that 18 by 24-inch sheet of paper. Okay. So this is another one, a student who really just kind of dove in. I mean, look at these incredible details, guys, like this hatching and the way that these lines are kind of following the nose. This student was really, really talented. And also, I don't do this as much these days for confidentiality. And of course, you really can't see the student's face, but I do really enjoy getting shots of students working in the classroom. And it's not to harangue or harass you. It's basically so I can show future students, sort of like some additional context. It's just documentation. I document my own practice religiously, and I also document my teaching practice religiously. So anytime you guys upload things to me, I put it in a folder and I save it. I save everything. So your work is really important to me. Just more beautiful hatching work. And this is an interesting circumstance because you can see, like, like the difference in lighting. Like, for example, I could go in and I could color correct this in Photoshop and adjust the white balance. That's what they call it. And so but you can see like and this drawing is much brighter in real life. So here it kind of shows the white balance a little bit more accurately, but the real truth is the paper almost kind of looks a little bit yellow in these two circumstances. But again, here is one of my favorite former students, just a fantastic guy, Troy, just diligently working, and it gets really obsessive and beautiful. Um, another example, and I started to kind of show where the photograph almost sort of begins with the digital technology, the before and the after. And then, so here's the full image, two details below. And then there's also, I do ask my students to write about their work a little bit. And so that can be really, um, it can just kind of provide, again, some additional context as to what students are doing. Very valuable. Another one of those circumstances where the paper looks a little bit yellow because of just how it was photographed. So if you're photographing things in your bedroom with like two or three sort of, I guess like bedroom lamps, then you're probably going to get more of a yellow look and feel. But if you take your drawings outside, you'll be able to photograph them and they'll look more accurate, like the color will be more accurate, okay? This particular student really almost kind of took a very kind of abstract and interesting approach. It's still, I think it's a really interesting result what happened here. This particular student was just so detailed. I mean, gosh, you guys, look at this. So here's the original photograph. Here's the trace. Here's the drawing, the full image of the drawing, which is beautiful documentation. And then like there are these gorgeous detail, like look at, you can't see that detail from here. So that's why look at this, look at all that beautiful hatching that's happening in the hair. That's why I ask students to really kind of dive in and get close to things, okay? Um, so another example, and what I really like about what the student delivered to me in this circumstance, here's the before, and then here are some process shots as the drawing was developing in her studio. And that's really important to me as well. So, like I know that anyone who takes a class with me, I am asking for these things. And I know it's really easy to forget sometimes, but this stuff is very, very important. And then you just kind of throw all of these images into your project folder. And then when you're done, you send them to me. This should look familiar to you, a self-critique form. I do like to get those handed in to me as well. And then also there's some information about just simply really just a reminder about what cross-hatching is and what it can be. And there's really no right or wrong. I mean, I guess there's technically a more traditional way to practice hatching and cross-hatching and contour lines, but really what we're talking about is diagrammatic mark making that can represent different tonal values. And so this is just simply a reminder, hey, look at all these beautiful varied types of marks that show real dark shadows or medium tones and even lighter tones. Okay. Some sort of tutorials for how to quote unquote do it right. Although I think that my personal perspective is that you need to do what's right for you and your project. The way that you learn how to make art is through experience, not through a textbook. Okay. You learn by doing. Okay. And take this project as an opportunity to do just that. Hatching and cross-hatching technique. I love this, just scribble hatching. And look, they're kind of creating these spheres. That's kind of fun. Like here's more traditional hatching. So you notice there's no cross hatching going this way. It's hatching. So they're just straight lines and it works. Here's patch hatching, and like developing things to create this idea of form, right? And then here is cross hatching. Okay. So this kind of explains all of these different techniques for hatching and cross hatching and mark making in greater detail, which I really enjoy. I think that the work of Chuck Close is really incredible. And if you're not familiar with his work, there's an image of him down here on the right-hand side working. And he was an artist working in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I think he recently passed away like 5 years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. but you can kind of see, this is him working in the studio, but you also see him working in a wheelchair. And so this gentleman had a medical emergency in I think the late 60s, maybe early 70s. I can't remember the exact year, but it essentially left him paralyzed, and really all he could use was his hand. And so he ended up having these studio assistants, and they would put the paintbrush in his hand, and and he would work incrementally, square by square, to do these really amazing pieces of work. Okay. And so to me, it's really inspiring. And this process, um, Chuck Close did not invent this process. The grid was around, obviously, well before Chuck Close decided to use it in his artwork. But to me, that for my own personal process, being sort of a visual artist and a designer, the grid has played a huge organizational function in my life. And I really respect and love the grid quite a bit. And there are these incredible interviews with Chuck Close, which I really hope that you take a look at, because it just kind of gives you this I think artist interviews are also one of the best ways to really learn about art, because these guys are doing it. They're practicing art and they're thinking about it in advanced ways. Okay. So all of this PDF you will have, and I'm really looking forward to your results. But what I want to do now is, I have this Illustrator template that I always use for all of my classes, or for this project rather. And there's this layer with this is an 18 by 24 inch artboard using Adobe Illustrator, and there's a grid. And of course, you can kind of see, if you ever want to take a digital media class with me, you can learn how to use this software, which is really amazing. But there's the grid at the top, and then jokingly, there's that Kevin Bacon stuff, right? And so there's the original photo, and there's the trace. And then you'll see that there's a layer here for the student's photo or your photo. And some students know how to use Adobe Illustrator because they've already taken the class. So sometimes I actually send students this template. But I thought it would be fun just to kind of walk through this process a little bit with you, just so that you can start to learn the software, and just kind of see how the sausage is made, so to speak. Those details are sometimes kind of fun. So in Illustrator, I'm going to select this layer. I'm going to come up here to File, Export, excuse me, Place. I'm going to place an image, and this is a student currently in my class. And I was emailed this photo, because usually what I'll do is I'll ask students who are about to do this project to email me a photo of themselves so I can go through this process one at a time. So this particular photograph needs to be rotated. So Object, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees. Okay. It also needs to be kind of scaled down a little bit. So just kind of do that little operation. And then I'm going to select the image, and I'm going to do a 3-color trace. So 3 colors. And Illustrator will essentially go through and assign 3 tonal values to this photograph, which is really just fun. Okay, so there it is. So now what I want to do is I'm going to export this one all together for this particular student. So I'm going to export as a PNG, and I'm going to call it 3 all. Okay. I want to make sure this is going in the right place. Versus, you guys can see, my system here on the back end, kind of, just saving everything like a squirrel, just hoarding student files. And here's the file right there. So that's why I'm going to put these files in this student's particular folder. So export 3 all, because all of the systems are being represented there. Or value systems, I should be more specific with my words. So the next thing I want to do is I want to basically expand and then object ungroup this digital file, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of separate these 3 tonal values. So I'm going to select same fill, and then I'm going to put all of that sort of lightest tonal value on one layer. And I'm going to grab the medium tonal value, select same fill. I'm going to put that on this layer. And then that just kind of leaves the darkest tonal value there. So you can kind of see, I mean, how this sort of Andy Warhol, I mean, I don't know, to me, it's not really an Andy Warhol thing. It's really a drawing technique, because when you're looking at an object, you're doing it organically with your brain, you know, like mechanically, your eye is sort of doing what the software is doing in this circumstance, where it's identifying a dark value, a medium value, and then the highlight. So, so it's, again, this is just a tool for expression. So now I'm going to export these individually for the student. Okay. So let's call this 3A. Cool. Now 3B. Export as 3. And the last one, export as 3C. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So now what I need to do is I need to actually, I've already exported this, so I can undo. You know, that kind of sounds crazy, but what I want to do is I want to start over with the photograph that was sent to me by the student. So I'm just Command Zing and undoing here. Almost there, I think. And the reason why I want to do it one more time is I want to do a 6-color trace or a 6-value trace. So now select the photo again, come up here to image trace, go to 6 colors or 6 values. Here's thinking. Okay. So it looks like now, I mean, you can see it just kind of gives a much more detailed view. I mean, this jean jacket could be a little bit crazy. And the reason why I like to provide both versions to students is some areas you want it to be more simple and other areas you want it to be more complex. So, you know, just kind of depend, you know, students make those decisions on their own. You know, this is just information that I'm giving you guys. These are just resources. So, but I'm going to follow the same process. I'm going to expand object, ungroup, and then I'm going to create 5 layers so that I can start taking things apart, so to speak. Select, same fill, here. Yeah, this is just kind of a fun process too, in my opinion. It looks like the next medium or value is this one right here. So select. And what I'm doing is I say same, and instead of going in and selecting all of them, which could be really labor intensive, the software will actually go in and identify all of the same fills or colors so that I can just kind of, you know, the software makes things a little easier. That's all. Select same fill. And I'm kind of trying to do this methodically too. You know, I guess you'll have to decide the order of the values or the colors, because it's not grayscale, it's tracing colors, but you can still assign a value to even like this color right here. And so again, that's your decision, you know, that's a decision that you as the artist, you need to make. Select same fill. And that's it. Okay, so now I need to get an image. It's to me, it's advantageous to have an export of all of your colors. And so this one I'll call 6 all. Okay. And now I'm going to go back and start exporting them individually. File, export as, use artboards, rename the file 6. File naming and management is so important. 6A. 6B. 6C. Hmm. 6D. Almost there. Yeah, so this, obviously I'm kind of going through this quickly and I'm pretty darn familiar with this software. I've been using it for over a decade at this point. Again, this is Adobe Illustrator. In my opinion, one of the holy grails of just software applications, for digital illustration, excuse me. I believe this is 6E. And you have to make sure to click use artboards. That's pretty handy. And this is the last one, 6F. And you can see that, that's definitely the darkest value. So I tried my best to kind of put things in order, but I would advise that when you guys are looking at whatever files that I send you, you might need to evaluate, maybe you need to switch things around a little bit. So I'll let you guys make those decisions. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake there. It's 6F. Export as. I must overwrote 6E, fortunately. That would have been sad. 6F. So now if we go back to our folder where everything is sort of hanging out, you guys can see, look at all these semesters worth of student work that I'm collecting. If you go to this particular student's folder, now all of these files are there. And eventually the student will send me the final image. Okay. And, when you're looking at these, you can zoom in, of course, so just kind of keep that in mind. And, maybe you just kind of, it's very, very tedious, but, hey, good work is not done in one day. Okay. Takes time. Good artwork takes time. It takes time and focus. That's one of the big things I'm always trying to teach my students. Okay, I think that's plenty for now. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.